Now we're going to focus on the integumentary system. At the beginning of the year, we learned about different anatomical terms, and one of the things that we learned was that we're going to focus on systematic anatomy. So this is the start or the large push towards the different body systems. And remember, some other terms that we learned dealt with the makeup of the body, dealing and starting with elements and compounds make up organelles. Organelles make up cells, and then as we learned last week, cells make up different and various tissues. So one of the things that we're going to kind of jump into here is that these tissues are going to make up organs, and then different organs are going to then make up a body system. So we're going to first start and address that the integumentary system mainly consists of the skin, but it's not just the skin. We're going to be talking about some varying parts that would be separate from the skin, but still making up the integumentary system. And some of these parts will include the fingernail, hair follicles, different glands such as sweat and oil glands. Now, please make sure you're aware that dermatology is the scientific study and medical field dealing with the skin and integumentary system, and how these scientists or doctors will try to diagnose and provide treatment for different disorders of the integumentary system. Now, the skin is primarily the largest organ of the body. It's going to cover the whole outside of the body pretty much. It's going to be that first line of defense of protection and immunity that will protect the inside of our body from viruses, bacteria, any microscopic organisms. And it also produces vitamin D, which helps with the immune system. Now, we also have some different accessory organs that provide sensation, whether that sensation is pressure, pain, hot or cold. These temperature receptors are within the skin. We also have temperature regulation, and basically temperature regulation refers to the capillaries or blood vessels that are within the skin, and these are either going to dilate, which means open up, or they're going to constrict. Now, there are two main layers of the skin, but we're going to include a third layer because we're talking about the whole integumentary system. So make sure you know that we have the epidermis, dermis, and hypodermis, also known as the subcutaneous layer. Now, hypo meaning below, sub also means below. This is below the skin. So the hypodermis is not technically part of the skin, even though we are including it into the whole integumentary system, the system of different tissues and organs. So let's address the epidermis first. Epi means outside or on top. This is going to be the thin layer consisting of 5 different layers. You have stratum, which stratum means layer. So for each one of these, it says layer and then the name. Then below the epidermis, we have the dermis. And this is primarily where you're going to have a lot of the accessory organs, such as the sweat glands and the hair follicles and the blood vessels in the structure of the dermis. So we have the papillary layer and the reticular layer. The epidermis is comprised of epithelial cells, these cells that line the body. The epidermis doesn't have any blood vessels, so this is referring to avascular, meaning no vessels. Nutrients will diffuse from the dermal blood vessels up into the epidermis to provide nourishment for it. The epidermis does consist of some layers that are found in maybe the palms of the hands or soles of the feet, but then not found in other parts of the body. And in those cells, we have something called keratin. And keratin is a protein that provides some protection. So let's address the different layers, the 5 different layers. We have the top one, which is the stratum corneum. This is the outermost layer. This is primarily dead skin cells. And these dead skin cells have the protein keratin within them. It is definitely thicker, but it would not be found as thick where there's less pressure, such as your eyelids. Then we have the Stratum Lucidum. This layer primarily is not going to be found in other parts of the body. So this translucent layer is beneath stratum corneum, but it's primarily going to be found palms of the hands, soles of the feet, and this is where the cells start dying. So as they start dying and they become dead, they move up into the layer above. Then we have stratum granulosum. This is going to consist of just about 3 to 5 flattened granular cells. These cells start becoming hard. They start going through the process of keratinization. They start making the keratin, which is the fibrous protein we talked about. So they start going through this kind of soon to be dying process. Then we have the larger strata, and this is Stratum Spinosum, your spiny cells, different little shapes, which are more larger, getting squished down, and that will go to the above layer. But these cells primarily have the Langerhans cells, which are the immune system cells. So these are primarily going to be found in the middle of this layer. Then we have Stratum Basil. Think of basil such as bottom, B for basal, B for bottom. These are also known as the germinativum cells. And these are basically the deeper cells, usually going to be a single layer of either cuboidal or columnar cells. And as you see the picture down there, they look more like the columnar cells in the picture. And these cells are constantly, and here's the key here, these are dividing. These are living cells going through division. And these are going to also contain melanin. Melanin is a pigment that gives skin color. Now, in different people, they may have, even though they have the same number of melanocytes, they may produce more melanin, which gives a darker skin tone or skin color. So the amount of melanocytes are pretty much the same, but the production of the melanin gives different people different skin colors. So it's not the number of cells, but it's the production or the amount of this pigment being produced. Now, if someone does have a severe burn, this can impact the production of skin and may require a skin graft. A first-degree burn, if you can write this down, a first-degree burn only impacts the epidermis. Now, a second-degree burn is going to impact the epidermis and dermis, and a third-degree burn will actually extend into the hypodermis, so it will impact the epidermis, dermis, and hypodermis. This severe burn will definitely require a skin graft. Now let's focus on the dermis. The dermis is below the epidermis. It allows for the skin to stretch. It's more elastic connective tissue. It's going to contain blood vessels, nerves, and make sure you know the term for blood vessel is vascular, nerves innervated. It also consists of pseudoiferous sweat glands. Pseudoiferous is referring to the sweat glands. It also contains oil glands, which is referred to as sebaceous. And then we have hair follicles as well. And as we can see, dermal papilla. Papilla are these extensions from the dermis into the epidermal layer. This also forms our fingerprints. But this can also be these protrusions on the tongue as well. So you can see on the right of the picture, we have the papillary dermis, papillary reticular dermal interface. So that papillary area provides nutrients to the epidermis through blood vessels. Now the reticular layer is the bottom part of the dermis. This is denser, deeper, and this consists of those stretching fibers. Now let's talk about the accessory structures of the dermis. And as you can see, the papilla, the bulb, the whole hair follicle, you can see hooked to the hair follicle, we have the sebaceous glands. Sebaceous glands, we said, are the oil glands. So the word sebum refers to oil. And then we have the hair erector muscle. That muscle provides the goose pimples or goosebumps, and it will move the hair follicle. So you do have a muscle hooked to each hair follicle. So the follicle is what's going to be the living, developing part of your hair. Each hair has a shaft and a root that's embedded in the follicle, and as it grows and develops, it will grow through the dermis and epidermis. The erector muscle, as we said, or pilomotor muscle, is attached to each follicle. This will be stimulated by different temperature changes, skin irritants, emotional responses, and it will contract, and as we said, this can cause the goosebumps. At the base of each hair follicle, we have the bulb, which has little capillaries which go up into hair papilla, this little protrusion inside the hair, and that provides nutrients through blood vessels. So this is going to be the living structure of the hair. Now the hair is divided into three main parts. The outside, which is the cuticle, and that is a transparent covering, which is more protection. Then we have the cortex, which is the inside. That provides the hair color, the melanin, and also flexibility. And then we have the medulla. Think of medulla middle. The middle part is going to be an inner hollow core, and that runs the inside of the hair shaft. Then we have the sebaceous gland. As you can see, it's hooked to the hair follicle, releasing oil, which is called sebum. Now, there's different types of oil that's going to be secreted. Some oil is going to be secreted during pregnancy. Some oil is going to be secreted during puberty. It really does vary depending on the part of the body and as well as the age and the different hormones that are impacting the person. But you can definitely feel it on the top of your head if you don't wash your hair. This oil secretion is definitely going to lubricate the skin and prevent drying out. Then we have the nail, or the fingernail and toenails. It starts with the nail root, and basically this nail matrix or nail root is going to be also referred to as the germinal matrix or nail bed. And this is going to provide the production of the nail, and as it moves out of the finger or extending out of the finger, you have the white edge called the lunula or moon-shaped crescent. Now the cuticle, which is part of your skin, kind of above your nail, it sits slightly above the nail matrix. It allows the nail to grow. This is going to provide protection of the nail matrix. And the nail plate, which is the main structure of the nail that we see, and that nail plate has little grooves that help it anchor in. That's why we can't lift it up if people put something underneath their fingernail or try to lift it up. That's why it causes pain, because of these little grooves. If we have an ingrown toenail, the toenail will curve on the outsides into the flesh, into the skin, and this can cause the skin to become swollen and inflamed. That's why it's important to cut the nail across, not kind of curved, but straight across. Then we have the sweat glands, or called the pseudoiferous glands. Now there are the apocrine glands and eccrine glands. Now remember, sweat glands are exocrine glands. So exocrine meaning exiting on the outside, but we're going to divide the sweat glands into apocrine and eccrine glands. These sweat glands are going to focus on excreting salts, urea, ammonia. This is primarily happening all over the body, and this opens directly to the skin. Now the apocrine glands deal more with hormones. This is when we are nervous, when we go through puberty. These sweat glands are primarily odorless, but we primarily smell them because of the bacteria in our skin. These are primarily found in the armpits and pubic areas, where we have a lot of hormones produced.